What's happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, thanks to the amazing team over at ShowZ, I'm back this time with a review for the SND-08 IDW Optimus Prime. Now, for those of you looking to add one of these to your collection, I'll of course be sure to smack a link down in the description box below, and this is what collectors have been after for so many years: mainline scaled third-party figures. I kind of took a look at one of those, last year with the Toy Lab Soundwave, but sadly it was plagued with so many issues. The engineering packed into that tiny package was just way too much. The parts were brittle, the transformation was just overcomplicated, too fiddly, and unfortunately I think that's some of the issues that lay here with this guy. There's just a lot crammed in a small package, and I just think these third-party companies need to come to some kind of middle ground. You're giving us a mainline scale transformer, but a masterpiece transformation, and with the scale it just makes things so much more harder than they really need to be. But I'll be sure to get into more of that when we check out the transformation. Here we have Optimus Prime, or the One, as he comes packaged in his robot mode, and it's a sick looking design. IDW Optimus Prime looking really cool, kind of has elements taken from both G1 and the Michael Bay movies. I think my only qualm with the design of the robot mode overall would be the paint. He really could have benefited from some metallic silver, especially for the mouth guard, the sun visor, and the smokestacks, but detail wise, looking really awesome. This guy also has a few die-cast components in him, which is pretty neat, but love the way the torso comes together. Just overall, it's a very athletic build for Prime, and despite the transformation being pretty much a nightmare, I think it does create for a very slender looking bot mode. I mean, even as we come around to the back, check out that profile, no excess kibble. I love the way the backpack actually stows away here, so that's sick. So yeah, definitely a really cool design. I'd say if you don't plan on transforming this guy, then the robot mode is stunning, but if you want a transformer that you can consistently flick back and forth from robot to truck, and you're thinking maybe this is going to be along the lines of the Earthrise Optimus Prime transformation, then I'm sorry guys, but you couldn't be further from the truth, as the transformation on this guy, I'd say, is up there with the MP44. Now, in terms of articulation, we do get a nice swivel here out of the head. Sadly, it's not on a ball joint, and I think that would have been great, but it can also tilt up and down. We do get some very stiff joints going all the way around, as well as out to the sides. Technically, due to transformation, you could disengage this joint, which allows for a fake butterfly, which is really cool. We also get a nice rotation here at the bicep, a double jointed elbows, which is fantastic, and much like Earthrise Prime, some proper opening hands. So you can open those four fingers, and this one too, the little thumb, is on a ball joint. We can also rotate that left to right. A really cool waist joint that's completely uncompromised, and technically a little bit of ab crunch, so this can crunch forwards as well as backwards, so that's pretty neat. And I think the legs are awesome. So here for the hips, we get that main traditional hip joint, which I'd say could bend roughly to 90, but there's also a hidden joint which allows you to kick that way past the traditional 90 joint. So that is really cool, and then it can also kick backwards if we move the butt flap out of the way, so that also is a pretty decent range. They can kick out to the sides, again roughly to 90. Unfortunately, on my copy, this leg is very loose. I mean, it doesn't take much at all for that ratchet joint to give in, but this one seems to be pretty stiff, so not too sure what went on there. We do get a nice thigh rotation, technically a double jointed knee, although the second joint is very stiff, so you'd get to about there on one joint, and then if you take this back joint and pull it backwards, it does allow for a slightly better range, so that's pretty cool. And then finally, as we come down here to the toes, these can pivot forwards and backwards, and so can the whole foot for that matter, and it can also rock side to side. And as you guys can see, there's also a bit of die-cast packed in there, which is pretty cool. So in all, yeah, it's a pretty nice Optimus Prime, but like I said, when we get into transformation, unfortunately, I think that's where this guy kind of falls a little short. Now, in terms of some features, he does have the Matrix of Leadership, so we can open up the chamber, we can detach this section here, and then open this up, and I do believe the Matrix is die-cast. If not, then it's got a chrome finish, but really nice details, a traditional G1 Matrix of Leadership. I do believe it's removable, but it is such a pain in the butt to get back in there, so I'm merely just going to leave it stationary here for this review, but that's a pretty cool touch. And let's jump into a few accessories, as this guy does also come with a fair amount. So we get the traditional Ion Blaster, very G1 inspired, not much going on here. No paint, unfortunately. Would have been cool to have gotten some metallic silver. This is Blast Effect compatible, although the connection is a little looser than maybe I would have liked. We also get a pair of dual Energon blades, very kind of Michael Bay live action movie inspired. No paint on these at all, which is unfortunate, but nice translucent orange plastic. They do simply peg into the arm guards via this connection. So you can see we get these 3 teeth, which will just snap into the side of the arm, which is pretty cool. And then we also get an array of hands. So in addition to these articulated ones, we get a pair of command hands for Prime to command the Autobots to roll out into battle. There's a pair of fisted hands, which to be fair, I don't think are that necessary considering that the articulated hands can pretty much pull off this gesture, but still, I guess a decent inclusion. And then finally we get a pair of dynamic hands, which I think are my personal favourite out of all of the bunches we get. So they're really nicely sculpted, and for those wondering how they switch out, you simply just take the hand and pull it out of the socket, and of course you can interchange them with the rest of the bunch. So for some size comparisons, we have the third party The One compared alongside the official Hasbro Earthrise Optimus, which despite being packaged as a leader, is more along the lines of what you would expect from a Voyager, and like I said previously, definitely in that mainline scale. This I would say would probably be an average Voyager, where this would be perhaps a larger scale Voyager, so I don't think the scale is too off here, and I know some of you guys are going to be wondering what is the plastic quality like on this third party figure when in comparison here to the Hasbro version, and I'd say they're pretty much on par. If anything, this guy has some pieces which feel better, but then others which feel a little more fragile just due to how many pieces are packed into the transformation, which don't worry, you're about to see in just a second. But like I said previously, definitely in that mainline scale, which I love to see, but I just hope to see in the future done a little better. Here he is alongside our most recent mainline Megatron, that being the version I think from Siege. How cool would it be if third-party companies gave us a proper G1 Megatron that could turn into a gun in the mainline scale? I know that thing would be bought like there is no tomorrow, but again, these don't look too bad. Maybe Megatron is on the slightly shorter side, so I guess, you know, you could throw in a leader class Megatron and perhaps that would look slightly cooler, but again, not too bad. Here he is alongside the Hasbro Studio Series Revenge of the Fallen Megatron, and I think this works out just great in my opinion. Here's the Legacy Evolution Voyager class Tarn, Studio Series Voyager 86 Ironhide, and I think this works out just great, and the Deluxe class Netflix Volkswagen Earthrise Bumblebee. Now we turn to the unfortunate part about this figure, and that has got to be the transformation, where they've crammed literally a masterpiece into a mainline scaled figure, and it does kind of result in something which is very frustrating. So I'm going to try my best to showcase the conversion as best I can. So first of all, you're going to want to come here to the hand, take the thumb, and just slide that in. We can then take this section here, angle this outwards, rotate the hand around, and then just slide it into that hollow cavity. And personally, I'd recommend just, you know, stacking this up here for now. We can then take this faux tire, hinge it up, and then slide it into that tiny cavity. We can now rotate here at the bicep and bend at this blue elbow joint. So not the bottom one, the top one, just like that. What we can now do is take the smokestack, hinge this section up, and there's a tiny panel here on the back that you're just going to want to pull out, and this will rotate all the way around. So you're left with something at the moment which looks along the lines of this. We can now take that butterfly joint that I showcased previously, detach it, so just hinge this out and repeat the exact same process on the opposite side. Once you've done that, we can now come around here to the back, and you're just basically going to want to take this here, detach these sections just like that, and now what we can do is extend this here out on a double hinge joint. You'll now want to take this tiny piece, fold this in, and take the head, and if it hasn't done so already, rotate it so that the mouth guard is now facing the back. Now inside here, these sections are on some screw joints, so you're just going to want to straighten these out and have a roof cover, which at the moment looks like this. Now what we can do is come here to the torso and basically grab it and just detach it just like this. Lift this up for now. We can then take these panels, hinge that up, and shoot this butt flap up like that, and it will detach these skirt pieces away from the right hand side. We can now take these red pieces, fold these in, and do the same here for this side. Now this is just going to stick out. More than likely it will detach later on, but as long as it's in this configuration, you should be pretty good to go. We can now take the truck doors, just angle these here out to the sides. Prime versus Prime jumping in from the future, as upon editing this review, I found out I did a massive blunder that if you guys replicate, it will more than likely break your copy. So, as far as the transformation from robot into truck goes for the chest, you're going to want to come here to these tiny little panels, and just hinge these out of the way. We can now take this section here, give this a nice old wriggle, and they'll actually detach very nicely. The first time I transformed this, I yanked it, and if you guys do that, it's definitely going to break. So once you've done that, we can then take these tiny little panels and flip those inwards. We can then take the wheels, if they haven't done so already, fold those out, and these two are on a slider joint. I don't know what it is with this figure and slider joints, but they're going to slide upwards And just like that on this side. So that was me from the future. Let's jump back into the past, or I guess your present. And here comes one of the most challenging aspects about the transformation in my opinion, and it is literally folding these arms into this cavity. So first of all, you're going to want to slide this section here back and just tap that into place. What we can then do is bring this section here back, take this piece, fold this out, lift this up and over, fold all of that out. Now I personally would recommend to leave this upwards for now, as if you fold it over it's just going to cause for so many issues. So what you're going to want to do here is fold these butterfly joints in until this panel flips out and basically fills in that hollow cavity. So we can just have that like that. We can then take these panels here and hinge them outwards just to get them out of the way, and there is a tiny little tab that is going to peg into that slot. So your aim is to get that into that tab with hopefully no problems. So just line that up and snap it into place. Just make sure all of these panels are overlaid. Now as you can see, there is a part of the window on this door wing, so this is just going to swing around and fill that upwards, and there's also a tiny little tab here that's going to peg into a slot on the underside of the arm. So just lock this section here into place. So as you can see, it will click in rather nicely. Do the exact same on the opposite side, so come here and bang. So you should be left with something like this. I've basically just taken the steps from this side and put it onto this side. There is a lot of fiddle factor with this figure. I mean, not even now do I think I've truly mastered it, as once you get one area pegged in, another area just wants to pop out of place. But as long as it's looking something like this, you should be good to go. Just make sure that those tabs are pegged into this centerpiece, that this here is shot into that tab, and here on the underside there's also another tab which is going to peg into that slot. So once you have the front chest windows splayed open like this, we can then bring this up and over, and these big tabs are going to go into the back of these slots. So just bring this down and snap that there into place, come along to this side, and then just try your best to snap this side in also. So at the moment it should be looking along the lines of this. So far, not looking too bad. I do wish things perhaps would have stayed in a little better than they have. Then what you're going to want to do is take this backpack and bring this over. The head is going to slide into that big hollow cavity. So let's see if we can get this over the smokestacks without anything self-exploding over each other. So just get that in there and then snap this cap on just like that. So far, not looking that bad. Just make sure that everything here is nice and straightened out. Now we come to the legs, which are definitely, again, very fiddle factor-esque. So we're going to start off with, I'd say, this one. So what you're going to want to do is bend here at this joint. We can then take the thigh panel, and personally I'd recommend bringing in the aid of a screwdriver just to pop this cap open. So open that. We can then take the knee pad, and it's just going to slide into that section, and this will snap over the top. We can then bring this back and over. Now, technically, the shin pad is on a slider joint, but it is probably one of the worst slider joints I've ever seen. So really and truly, you're just going to want to try and disengage all of that, swivel this out, and if I can show you, as you can see, it is on a little slider joint. Just extend that up, bring this forwards, and what you're going to want to do is take this section here, rotate it around, tuck it down, and then rotate that around like that. So it should be left with this. Then what we can do is come up here to this back piece, detach it if it hasn't done so already, and just leave this flopped upwards. We can now take this little blue piece is going to tuck inside, and then this blue piece is going to flip around just like that. Now we can come here to these heel spurs, just uncurl all of those. They too are on a slider joint, so shift those outwards. And then this also is on a slider joint, so just slide that section down. Now what we can do is take the wheel, fold that up, and then this here will just rest along like that. Okie dokie, so flip up here to the top now, and just bring this here over. And what's going to happen is we're going to compress this on this double hinge joint, and then at the same time this is going to latch over the top of that, just like this. And then this piece is also on a double hinge joint, and that is going to shoot into that tab. So just snap that in there. We can then fold up the wheel, take this here, snap that into place. And now what you're going to want to do is bring this up, and there is a slot there that's going to peg into this tab. So snap that in there and do the exact same for the opposite side. So right now you should be left with something like this. Now I've decided not to tab them in just yet, as there's kind of a knack for sliding these bottom pieces of the smokestacks into the top piece. So you're just going to want to take this here and first of all latch it underneath, and then it will snap into place. This back piece will peg into a slot which looks something like this. So now we'll do the same here for this side. So slide this here under first of all, snap it into place, and then snap that tab in there. Now is where we can proceed to click all of this in, and there's a tiny little latch here that is just going to go over the top and will snap into place. We can then come to the side, drop these panels down, and then these are going to come down and peg into the side of the hips like that. Do the same here for this side, so bring this section down and snap this in. These don't always want to really grasp in there, which again is a tolerance issue. I'm not sure if it would affect every copy, and as you can see I've kind of got things exploding, so maybe I'm doing a few things wrong. But then if they haven't already, take these die-cast side view mirrors, and there we have the one transformed up into his truck mode. Now that may have seemed relatively straightforward, but trust me guys, there is a very high fiddle factor with this figure. I just think overall it's to do with clearance. I mean, this is a very small figure and they've literally packaged in a super complex transformation. So I mean, if they wanted to make a masterpiece, they should have made this guy bigger overall instead of making him mainline scale. I just wish the transformation was a little more akin to what you would expect from some Hasbro Transformers. But nevertheless, here we have him in the truck mode, and once it's all together, I mean, it does look pretty cool, I won't lie. They've given us some trailer hitch detail at the back, and for the most part, it's a pretty clean back of a truck. Definitely a lot better than some of the Hasbro offerings I've seen. We do get some nice proper rubberized tires, but much like the robot mode, it would have been so cool had these grey pieces been spruced up with, I don't know, maybe some chrome or some silver. Just would have made them pop, and the same could be said here for the stacks. These actually look a lot worse in truck mode than they did in robot mode, as it's just a big lump of ugly grey plastic. But from the front, this looks great. Some nice paintwork. I think the transparent blue plastic we have all looks cool, and I like the shape and I like the proportions. It definitely does look like a pretty solid looking Optimus. It's just a shame that the transformation from point A to B is for the most part an absolute nightmare in my opinion. Now I know there may be some of you guys wondering, can this figure still roll? And yes, it actually rolls like a dream. I think they're screwed on, but like pin joints, very smooth. So yeah, this guy can roll out into battle. Now as far as some comparisons go here for alt mode, here is the One compared alongside Earthrise Optimus Prime, and unfortunately despite him being called the One, he's not the one for me. He's not my one, as I still really like Earthrise Prime. I just think the simplistic transformation just makes this thing such a treat to handle, whereas this guy, don't get me wrong, he looks sick in truck and robot mode, but like I said, that conversion really is a deal breaker for me. But definitely mainline scale, like I said previously, even more so here in truck mode. If anything, the Earthrise Prime may just be a smidge bigger if you count to the tip of the toe. So yeah, definitely will scale with some of your chug figures. Here he is next to the Netflix Volkswagen Bumblebee. They look pretty sick next to each other, and I know you guys may be wondering, can you smack any mainline trailers onto this figure? And the short answer is yes. So here we have Earthrise Prime's trailer, and it will go into the trailer bed, although unfortunately sits at a slight angle due to this basically not recessing all the way into the port. So that is a little bit of a shame, but I mean, from certain angles, you know, you can kind of fudge it. And I also have another trailer, that being the one that came out for the APC Toys Optimus Prime, and this also will fit on there. And to be honest, whilst it looks massive in comparison, I think it sits a little better because all of the wheels here at the back can roll. So if you own this trailer and you want to smack it onto this Optimus, it can definitely work, but unfortunately I do think the scaling is just a smidge off. And so some final thoughts for the SND-08 IDW Optimus Prime. On paper it sounds like a great idea, you know, third party mainline scale Transformers, what could go wrong? Well, I think this figure is kind of a prime example of that. Despite this guy looking sick in both robot and truck mode, the transformation, the engineering from point A to point B, I think is just overly fiddly. I mean, they've crammed a masterpiece transformation into something which is mainline scaled, and it's just frustrating. You know, pieces are consistently bashing into each other, there isn't enough clearance, there's not enough room to just move joints out of the way, and it just overall results in, I want to say, a frustrating experience. You guys might have an entirely different experience, but I've transformed my fair share of third-party figures, and yeah, this one unfortunately was quite fiddly, especially in the torso and the legs. Basically the whole transformation, to be honest. But the robot mode does look good. It could have been spruced up with some metallic silver. I definitely think a bit of paint wouldn't have gone amiss, but the articulation is nice. The tolerances overall are decent. You know, I have a floppy hip joint on one of the ratchets, but you know, that could just be an issue on my copy. I think the accessories are nice. I like the blaster, I like the blades. Again, could have been touched up with some paint, but they're neat. And it is cool to see him actually scale with some other mainline figures, but I just think that these companies need to find a middle ground. You know, you can't give us something which is small in scale, yet still have the same complex conversion as the likes of a Masterpiece, because Masterpiece figures are bigger for a reason, and it's so they can pack in more engineering. So that is just a little frustrating. I'd love to get your thoughts down in the comment section below, but if you are after picking this up, I will leave a link down in the description box below. But just be aware what you're getting yourself in for. Despite him looking great, the transformation definitely, I think, is a deal breaker, at least in my opinion. I thank you guys all so much for watching, and until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.